Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you guys for stopping by very much. You know, for all of my people in the Philippines, magandang hapon, mabuhay to you, kumusta na, masaya kong makikinig muli, mabuting pagbati, amasal tayo, maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, taking a look at my stuff. Very much appreciated, a lot. For anybody who is coming from Russia, I say привет to you. Как дела? Спасибо for coming by and taking a look at my video real quick. For anybody who doesn't speak Russian, I said hello, how are you? And I just said thank you, спасибо for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. I pretty much, when I speak different languages, that's pretty much what I say. You know, I'll say like a hello or like a type of greeting, and I'll say like thank you type deal for the most part. Sometimes I'll know a little bit more in some languages than other languages. I am somewhat of a language aficionado. If you guys haven't noticed, man, you know, I got the rest of those languages in good morning for, you know, the people in the Philippines real quick. But if you guys are ready to go, I have the round 24 game Vladimir Kramnik versus Wesley. So, former world champion versus world champion in chess 960, Fisher random. So if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for this game. So we got e4, e5, knight comes to f3, we see knight to c6. Bishop to c4, we see knight to f6, d3, bishop to c5, castles by white. And we have the Juco Pianissimo. And, you know, of course, as you guys know, it is considered the quiet game. But rarely you ever see these games be quiet. They should call it like the loud or the crazy game. But they don't. They call it a quiet game. But, you know, we're going to see what's cracking. We got d6, c3. We got h6, rook to e1, a6, a4, bishop back to a7, knight b to d2. We see g5, and then we see b4 by white. And white is actually in a very good position right here. You know, they have a lot of space. You know, these pawns are, you know, grabbing a lot of space up here. You know, this bishop is eyeing a really nice square. You know, g5 isn't really preferred because your king isn't really castled. So it might be a little bit dangerous. You know, you kind of still have these two pieces that need to kind of get out into the game. We do see knight back to h7. We see king to h1. Just giving a lot of protection to the king. And I'm trying to... I didn't notice this. Like, can't you just take care with the pawn? Is there something there? Maybe you just rook over and you just get this open file? That's probably what it is. I don't know. It looks like a gambit. Like I said, be careful when you're talking about getting when you're talking about grabbing pawns. It might be dangerous. I'm thinking bishop takes, rook over, and then you have, you know, knight maybe moving back real quick. You got some problems on this file. Got this queen coming in. Yep. Okay. That's me on the fly. That's me just like noticing something I overlooked in when I was analyzing the position. But this position has been seen before, so it must have got worked out. Maybe something like what I was talking about. We do see castles by black. And this is the novelty of the game. I'm honestly not sure what the move was in the past. I really feel like it wasn't bishop takes f2. It just seemed too dangerous to take that. We see b5, and we got knight to a5. We see d4. Now, this is the point in the game where, you know, it doesn't start going bad for white, but this is definitely like the wrong decision to make at this particular point. Because you do have the move g4, and you are now able to undermine the protection of the d4 square. So it just knocks the knight back to g1, and now, you know, you're pretty much just going to be losing a pawn in this position. Now, you know, white is not doing that bad in the position, but, you know, they're kind of just giving away a pawn for no reason. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. So we see pawn takes d4, and then Kramnik decides to try to defend with bishop to b2. So we see knight takes c4, knight takes c4, we see bishop to e6. We got pawn to b6. We see pawn takes b6, we see knight down to d2. Pawn takes c3, bishop takes c3. So, you know, in the position that we see right now, you know, white is down two entire pawns. You know, they have a nice bishop on this diagonal, so they kind of got a little bit of compensation for it. You know, their king isn't, you know, the best. This king is definitely a lot safer. You know, so we kind of have like, you know, maybe just a couple things coming into position. So, you know, white is not doing too horribly. We see b5, you know, of course, trying to get this bishop open and maybe taking on f2 is live now. So we do see f4, pawn takes en passant, f3. We see knight d takes f3. We see rook to c8, queen coming to d2. We see pawn takes a4. Now, like I said before, you know, white is very active in this position. You know, black still has kind of a couple pieces back on their back rank. They got this knight kind of weirdly placed over here. This bishop is kind of off a little bit. You know, it does have some good scope, but, you know, white is just a little bit more active. So, yes, they are down some material, but, you know, they do have a lot of activity for you know, the being down the material. So, it's not all that bad. So, we have rook takes a4. Now, in the position that we have right now, you actually did have the ability to go knight to e2. Then after knight to g5, you can see knight to f4 come. And, you know, like I said before, there's not a lot of protection around the king. This bishop is kind of slicing in, you know, so you do definitely have, like, you know, kind of some play in this position here. And, you know, of course, you would love to see knight takes f3 because you can take with the pawn. And, you know, then you might have a little something going on the g file. Well, you know, black probably wouldn't do that. But we see rook takes a4. We got knight to g5. We see bishop down to a1. King comes to h7. We do see knight to d4. Bishop back to d7, giving a nice little tempo on that rook. So we do, you know, move the rook down to a3. We see rook over to e1. And we have reached a point in the game where I would like for you to stop the video and see if you can guess a really, really nice move. And it's really kind of interesting because even though you are down 2 entire pawns, there is actually like a very strong, not winning move, but it definitely gives white a nice advantage in this position. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can find it. Okay, cool. So what we actually saw in the game was rook to g3, which wasn't too bad. But, you know, it does, you know, black does have like, you know, a pretty nice position with this. But the move I'm looking for is actually h4. Now, h4 does two things. One, it attacks this knight. So, you know, you have to move the knight somewhere. You really don't want to go here because you're going to be looking at this. You know, it's looking kind of iffy. And, you know, you're going to have to play something like f5. But, you know, you got some issues. You know, you got some issues as black. So, in this position, you would probably see bishop takes d4. And then queen takes d4. Maybe knight to e6. Queen back down to f2. And, you know, you do have this rook swinging over. You do have this type of stuff coming. You do maybe have bishop coming here, knocking this queen. So, I mean, you do have some really, really nice activity for white. So, you definitely don't, you know, this is definitely something that, you know, white could definitely have gone down. But they didn't. So, we saw rook to g3. We have a rook over here to g8. We see queen to d3. You know, on a good day, we can push this pawn with all kinds of nasties on this king. But, you know, black is not going to allow that. You know, this is Wesley So we're talking about. So we do see rook to g6. We got knight g to f3. We have knight takes f3, rook takes f3. We see bishop back to e8 because this is a very, very tender point. And, I mean, you don't necessarily want to do something as committal as pushing the pawn anywhere because you are going to have to defend it. Because this bishop, once it's open, is going to be a real monster on this diagonal, right? So we got rook e to f1. We see rook to c7, just adding extra protection to that f7 square. Queen comes down to d2. We see queen to g5. And then we see queen to f2 in this position. And, I mean, you're doing okay as white, but you are having to make sure that you maintain the protection of this square because you do have a checkmate threat on the board. And so in this position, rook to f4 was actually just a little bit more accurate. And then you would probably see something like bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, rook to c4. You know, because of course, you know, the rook is going to try to take here so that you can deflect the queen away so you can deliver checkmate. Checkmate is always nice. And then you would see rook 1 to f2. And it's actually just slightly better for black, even though you are down 2 pawns. And that's the thing that's craziest for me when I'm looking at this. Like, white has literally been down 2 pawns like the entire game. And the computer is just constantly saying, oh, yeah, you know, black is just barely better, or black isn't even better. Like, it's just, I mean, this literally material. So as a human, I think that, like, Vladimir Kramnik playing this, like, I mean, he has to be kind of feeling some type of pressure, even though the computer is saying that he's all right. Anyway, we see queen to f2. Then we have rook to c1. And rook to c1 is very direct. You're just like, dude, I'm trying to get this rook off the board because, you know, black, is up material. So naturally, you're gonna want to trade down. So you know, we got bishop to b2, rook takes f1. We see queen takes f1. You know, still making sure we hold on to this pawn. We got queen over to e7. We got knight to f5. And the craziest thing about this position, like, look at this position here. You got 5 pawns as black. You have double bishops. And you have a queen and a rook. And white has 3 pawns. And, I mean, it really doesn't seem like they have an attack. The computer literally says triple zeros. Like, yeah, white can draw this. You're like, how? I don't, man, I mean, I tell you what, I think I'm a pretty okay chess player. I don't see how you draw this position as white. Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe you guys see it and I don't see it and I just suck. But, man, I swear, dude, like, I mean, these pawns just look like, I mean, look like death. This bishop is slicing in. This bishop can get on the better diagonal. You know, something like this. It just doesn't seem good enough for white for you to be like, yeah, it's a draw. So, that's computers for you. Computers are like, no, you're good. And you're like, I'm scared. Like, it's crazy, man. So anyway, we see queen takes e4, and then we do see knight takes d6 in the game. Now, the interesting thing is the computer is saying that you have a really, really nice move that gives white a clear advantage after the move knight to h4. And knight to h4 is very tricky because you do have this bishop slicing down this diagonal. You are going to be forced to move this rook. This point is tender because you cannot back this rook up to protect. You know, you absolutely cannot take because this is actually going to be mating in 2 separate ways. You got rook takes f7 with check. And, I mean, you can have king to g8, rook to f8 check, king to h7, king to rook to h8 mate. Or you can just take immediately. You know, you're forced to move this rook in the way and then you have mate this way. So it's kind of like pick the way you want to get mated. That was a really interesting move that the computer was showing. I was like, man, that's kind of cool, man. So we do see knight takes d6. We have rook takes d6, rook takes f7, and not taking back with the bishop, the very, very accurate king to g6. And that's just that's a pretty killer. It's a pretty killer situation, you know, king to g6, because you are really just down material at this point. But it is still saying that white is good. It's still saying that, man, you could just go rook f8 and you're good. I mean, everything is good. You're solid. Like, it's just barely better for black. And I'm just like, dude, I mean, maybe you got a pawn back, but I mean, you're down an entire piece. Like, how can white be okay here? I don't know, man. I think I would just go ahead and just lose this position as white. I wouldn't even, like, because I would just, like, for 10 moves ago, be like, man, I'm just lost, dude. Like, I'm just going to resign. Like, so we actually don't see rook to f8 in the game. We see the exclam move h3, and like you're just really shocked at this move because it just allows bishop takes f7, and in this position, Vladimir Kramnik does resign the game. I mean, as you guys could probably see before this point, there's really nothing to do for white. You know, in this position, I mean, they were even down an entire piece, and I wasn't really sure how you convert this into a win or how you survive this as white. You know, h3, I really just think that, like, I don't know, maybe Kramnik sat there for a second and he really forgot that this bishop was attacking his rook, and he just made some lift for his king and just literally forgot about his rook. And then I really think he was shocked when the bishop took and he was like, oh, like, we've all had it. I mean, I literally had a tournament where I was like, I had a repetition going back and forth with this person, and I got like irritated, and I pushed a pawn, and I just dropped an entire rook, and I was just sitting there like, and the person was playing for a draw, like they wanted to draw the entire game. So that's why they played what they played, and I was like, we're not getting a draw. Like, I'm either gonna lose or win, and I lost. So it wasn't the best day, but anyway, yeah, that was that game right here. Like I said, it was a very interesting game. You know, it was really crazy to me, like I said, because it just seemed like white was just getting like demolished like for like half the game. But the computer kept saying, nah, man, you're good. Like, you're even better here. Like, all right. That's why it's a computer and I'm just me. I'm just regular Kelvin and that's it. But for all of these people out here in the Philippines, King Makaibigan, I have these good mornings for you. So let's get it rolling. I sped through them last time. Let me see if I can spit them out faster this time. So, maanyong buntag, mayad na agahan, nainbeg na biga, mesentios ya kaboson, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maanyong aga, mapia na uma, kapi and kapuno dios, mayap a abak, okay, so I'm stuck at this one. Mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big abukla, marja nabuntag, marja my nat, mapia, no, malpe na aga, kasan yangan si lub, assalamu alaikum, salam, merci beaucoup. Yes, I got them. Like, I'm sticking at a couple of points, but I'm getting through them pretty fast. I'm gonna get to the point in the future where I'm just gonna spit through all of them like a machine gun, and I'm gonna be, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. But I have, let me see. There is a another phrase I learned. Kita na long tayo mamaya. I'll see you later. Appreciate it very much, and I'll see y'all next time.